Level Up is a regular podcast that brings you topics to help you perform at work and in life at your very highest level. Your host is Dan Chiodo, an executive coach, corporate trainer, and author. He is president of Impact Training and Executive Coaching. And now, here's Dan.
Thanks, Jesse. A great introduction as usual, and welcome all of you to Level Up. This is your link to lifelong learning, and it's specifically for your age, whatever you are, because you can really learn so much. Maybe you're a young professional. Maybe you're a seasoned professional. Maybe you just want to make some changes in your life. Well, that's what Level Up is all about. Now, on Saturdays, the Wall Street Journal runs these really extensive and extremely interesting obits. They're obits about people who have really been successful and influential. Now, I know that's kind of gloomy. Sorry to say that, but there's a reason I say it. As I read them so many times, it's someone that took something that was just a startup or maybe a point in their life when things weren't so good, things were kind of poor. And then all of a sudden they discovered something. They discovered how to become an entrepreneur and did something with their life. Well, today is going to be a day like that. I am so excited to have my guest here because we're going to talk about those sorts of things. Now, here's a person who started out by cleaning golf balls found behind an alley for a friend's house, and then resold them to, of course, golfers, and then used the money to buy, nutty bars and things like that. Well, this person has really come a long way, and I want her to talk about her past, what she has done. Now, she has a company that's a $3 million company and 50 teams around the United States, and also has been ranked number 965 of the 5,000 fastest growing companies, and has been awarded for things like being fast growing with other awards and top education company. So I want to welcome the owner and operator of K Parks Consulting, and that's Dr. Kizzy Dominguez. Welcome, Dr. Dominguez. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan. I love the introduction. I'm so honored to be here today.
Well, we are honored too, because I talked to you a little bit about your past. It was so interesting and what you're doing now. And I wonder if maybe we could start with, take it all the way back to your family. Tell us a little bit about growing up.
Yeah, Dan. So I always knew that I was adopted. So it was something I always knew ever since I was a little girl. And as during my formative years, my adopted family, they were always very supportive of all of my ideas and ventures and kookiness, whether it was being voluntold to sell something in elementary school, like candy bars for a field trip, or I wanted to buy a bike. So I came up with all these ideas to earn money to buy a bike, or they supported me when I played volleyball. So growing up, my adopted family, they were very, very supportive. And I always had this entrepreneurial mind. And I remember always loving and gravitating towards things relating to business. So, for instance, I would always think about how to make things better or how to make money. So I was recently speaking with my aunt, and she said, I remember, because it was the same home in which she would babysit me in. And she's like, I remember when you were sitting on the floor with your brothers and they wanted something from you and you said, you would sell it to them and you were negotiating with them. It's just something that I've always had. And it's just so ironic in that fast forward, as I've gotten to know my birth family, my birth grandfather was extremely entrepreneurial, and he and his brother started a golf course in the kind of Muskegon, Michigan area. And he was very entrepreneurial. And I learned he had all these different businesses that he tried out. And a couple of my uncles are entrepreneurial. So it's amazing to see that combination of the nature and the nurture and the outcome of that.
That is great. And you say kookiness. Now, you mentioned kookiness. So as a child, what are some things you did that kind of might not be like every other child?
I think I'm trying to remember. Some of them were like just always open to the hustle. So at that time I don't remember the company, but it was one where you would have to sell something, and the more you sold of it, I think you could redeem or you would get money for doing it. So they supported me. They never said like, okay, this is the 7th thing you've wanted to sell to the neighborhood. Maybe we could call it quits. Like they were like, okay. And then I always loved sweepstakes. So we would win pizzas all the time. So I was always winning like pizza and music tickets and things like that through hotlines. And so it was always like a risk taker. And they would also encourage that, as well as encourage me to stand up for myself. So once for instance, I worked the polls. Like I was working this gentleman's campaign. I think I was in high school at that time, like a freshman or a sophomore. And, another kooky thing to do and earn some extra money. And the gentleman, I remember he lost, but he never paid me for being there. And I remember my dad said, okay, well, you need to call him up and ask him for your money. And I did that. And I remember the gentleman was like, wow, I'm proud that you called. I think he was surprised and thought he could screw me over. But, he tried to turn it into that. Oh, that's great. You called me because I do owe you that money. How did you know to call me? But my parents were always open to that. They never said like, no, I don't really know about that. They were very, very encouraging.
That's good. I think that this kookiness pays off as well as risk taking. You talk about that too. Can you think of times you took a risk and it didn't work out?
There were times I would say, there have been a few. So as far as professionally, one thing that I didn't really know is several years ago, I kind of learned this hard lesson around client relations and being seen. So I had this contract where I was a subcontractor. And in the federal government, sometimes you work on-site, off-site, blended, what may have you. And there was this arrangement where I worked off-site. So I would then subcontract that work out to other people. And I was always taught in graduate school honestly, to be a know-it-all. It's, that ivory tower mentality is very real. And it's taken many, many years to overcome that. And so I had this know-it-all mentality combined with, oh, okay, I have this client. I've had them for a long time. And what ended up happening is I became a line item that was easily expendable because they didn't really see me. And I thought, oh, I have this down pat. I know them. I don't need to really connect with them. And so I just had this know-it-all attitude, and I took a risk, in case you're wondering where the risk part comes in, because I was growing and doing other endeavors. So I took this risk by thinking, okay, well, I have this client. I don't really need to do much with them. I already have them as a client. I've had them as a client for several years. So I'm comfortable now to move to Miami Beach, to pursue other work, to figure things out in my life. And then what ended up happening was I lost that contract. But then at the same time, I gained the largest contract at that time in the history of the company.
Wow. So that sometimes risk pays off too. It's interesting. You're so entrepreneurial, and then you got the education to back all that up. Sometimes you don't think of being entrepreneurial and then going into a field where you're actually training and educating, but you've done that. I guess it's a nice blend then, right?
It has been. What's been the most helpful is that graduate school was the most difficult experience of my entire life, hands down. I would say it was more challenging than running my business. It was hell at times. And it was a situation where I always had to be on. And my future was dependent on the faculty and staff, as well as my performance. But at the end of the day, it was up to them. And so I really learned during that experience, not only kind of the value of industrial organizational psychology, but I further learned how to be flexible and to always be on, which really pays off because now, your listeners probably may know this, that somebody can call you up and say, hey, we would like to talk to you about an opportunity, or can you come in here tomorrow? Or can you do a presentation over Zoom? And you can't say, well, it's okay. The answer has to be yes. And so it really prepared me for that because every single waking hour, I not only had to be on, but I had to be able to support whatever it was, whether it was an answer in the class, it was a paper, it was a presentation, whatever it was, I always had to be on and have it well supported. And so it's really paid off with the company.
Yeah. I think it's great too that you went on then to get your doctorate, right?
Yeah. Yes. So I did. I always knew. As a little girl, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur and I knew I was going to have a PhD. I thought I was going to have a PhD in clinical psych because I was always very curious around the fact that I'm adopted. So I wanted to know more information. And then I always was like helping. So I would help like the kids in the neighborhood, help my parents. Like I was always super helpful and I thought I would become a clinician. And I found out in undergrad that was not the best approach for me or career. So earning the PhD in IO psychology was a perfect match because I just always knew. And it's been so helpful.
Yes. Well, maybe now's a good time for you to tell us about your organization. How did that start? Is definitely an act of God is the best way to, I feel like it really is. So you got to imagine I was in like my last year of this PhD program. So I went from undergrad, Western New York, middle of nowhere. I moved to sunny Central Florida. I earned a master's degree. I took 2 years off to lose 100 pounds to get my debt organized. And then I went back. And so 2.5 years later, I'm like ending my PhD journey. And I'm applying for jobs. And I got to the point, I got a job offer in Denver. And then I prayed not to get another job. And as I'm kind of going through this was December in beautiful sunny Florida. The director of research came up to me because I was a graduate research fellow at Patrick Air Force Base. So from about maybe March, I feel like I started sometime March or January of the same year in which I graduated. And the director of research came up to me and he's like, hey, I heard you were graduating. And I was taken aback because there was that power distance. He's this director. I didn't really know of him because the efforts that I worked on really didn't involve him. And he said, hey, I want you to stay on as a contractor. How much money will it take me? And I was like, what? Okay. And that's how it started. And so I ended up going from sole proprietor to subcontractor because about a couple years before then, I worked online for a for-profit university. And this particular for-profit university categorized us as 1099s.
So I had a sole proprietorship for a couple of years. So what I ended up doing was rolling that into KPC and learning. I had no idea. I had no idea what it meant to own a business, to subcontract for the federal government. And I also knew I had to supplement the revenue. So what I did is I expanded and started teaching online for more schools. And because I'm curious, I connected with a boutique kind of diversity and inclusion firm out of Central Florida who needed someone with my expertise. And because of their backgrounds and experience, they had all these Fortune 500 clients that, typically probably wouldn't give me the time of day. And so through them, I had so many for-profit clients. So I worked with Medtronic and universities and medical hospitals and other kinds of organizations. And so that's how things kind of started out.
Wow. That's a great foundation. A wonderful way to start out. Well, I think this would be a good time to take a short break.
Okay.
So I am Dan Chiodo, and this is Level Up. Today's episode is with Dr. Kizzy Dominguez, and we are talking about entrepreneurialism and education and taking risks. And after, on the flip side, we may talk about opportunity too and leadership. So we will be back after a word from our sponsor. And yes, this is Level Up.
At Express Employment Professionals
in Gulfport, Mississippi,
in Springfield, Illinois,
in Bend, Oregon,
in Champaign, Illinois,
in Corpus Christi, Texas,
in Jersey City, in Fishers, Indiana,
here in Knoxville, Tennessee.
We're on a mission.
We're on a mission.
We're on a mission. We're on a mission.
A mission. A mission. A mission.
A mission.
Mission.
We're on a mission to put 1 million people to work.
Welcome back to Level Up. So glad that you came back, and we knew you would, so that you can hear a little more from Dr. Kizzy Dominguez, who is our guest today. And we're talking about all sorts of topics, but now I want to talk a little more about her organization and then leadership in general. So let's start there. Give us a little more information about your organization. And you mentioned to me something about the vape shops, which I found very interesting. So make sure you include that.
Yes, I definitely will, Dan. So the way that we're structured is is first and foremost, we have been virtual out the gate in that we, majority of my team either work on site or they work from home, or they may physically go to a location to provide the services. So we don't have a lot of overhead. We're not really top heavy. So while I'm the owner, the only owner, the majority of my time is centered around business development, checking in with my team to make sure all of we call them ways, our processes and procedures, we call them KPC ways, that all the ways are being followed and that we are making the lives of our clients easier and each other easier. So those are, and social media. So those are my 4 main areas. And then I have a director of getting things done, and I have different leads. I have HR. I have a legal team that I work with. I have an amazing financial manager. I have an awesome accounting firm. And of course, my amazing team who's actually executing all of the work for my clients, as well as I have subcontractors that we partner with as along with those who may provide services like a one-off. So it may be, so for instance, we create what's called new supervisor training. And I may need a trainer to provide a 90-minute module on communication. So we'll bring somebody on board just for that module. And if we have any other training or any other kind of efforts, they'll come on board.
That is fascinating, especially I want to go back to this leader of getting things done. I like that.
Yeah.
That? Is that?
I want to say I Googled it, but I mean, it really is what she is. I mean, she's all about making sure things get done. And she's amazing at that, as well as it encompasses client relations, because that's been the biggest learning, hands down, I would say, in addition to the finance element of owning a business, and that is client relations. It's so hard to get a client. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. And then we all say, well, we want to keep them. Of course, you want to keep them. But then what are you really doing to keep them? Are you sending them an email? Are you just sharing something on your social media platform? What are you really doing? And so she does an amazing job at building lifelong relationships with clients. And I tell everyone our goal, and she's great at this, is to get into the family photos of our clients.
That's good. That's good. Now, with the team, that person and everyone else, how do you meet with them? It sounds like you have so much going on. Is it a consistent virtual meeting, or what does it look like?
We use Slack, and we've been using that platform for several years. So everyone is required to say good morning on Slack, and they all are very well aware that the fastest way to reach me is via Slack. And so they do that. Every month I have an all hands meeting. If for some reason we can't have an all hands meeting, it's usually like a Zoom. I'll record something for them. I'm really big on making videos. So I provide a lot of videos, and then I upload those to our YouTube channel, and I share them with the team because I always want to make sure I keep in touch. At the same time, I'm also very well aware of some of my areas of opportunity. And sometimes I get so task focused that I forget to engage and to ask questions and inquire. How are you doing? How are your kids? How's homeschooling? How's this doing? And so what's really great is my director of getting things done, she's a complete opposite. And so then she'll keep me in touch in case something comes up, like, oh, it's somebody's birthday, or this person, unfortunately, their relative passed, or this is their anniversary. And then what we also do is we send birthday cards and anniversary cards, and we send a lot of gifts, and we have a lot of reward and recognition. So it helps balance things out, because that's one of the best ways that I can engage with them in that way, in addition to Slack and our monthly all hands meetings.
Okay. It sounds like you're a great leader, and that you have great leaders too. So I think that's so good. I saw an article recently about Jeff Bezos, Amazon, and it mentioned that he asks several questions before making a decision about bringing a person on. And so there were two questions, and I just thought I would get your thoughts on this. One of the questions was, will this person increase the average level of effectiveness of our organization? Do you like that question? What do you think?
I think that's a great question, because too often people rush. We got to get somebody in. We got to hire somebody. Or I know somebody, or they went to school with me, or they came refer, and we're just like, okay, let's go. And we rush, and we don't think about what are they really adding? Because it could be that they're taking away.
Very true.
And it happens. I get it. I've made my share of bad hires, but I learned from all of them. But at this point in time, I don't have the bandwidth to continue doing that.
Right. The second question was, in what area could this person be a superstar? Sounds like you've developed some superstars, am I right?
I have some amazing, stellar superstars, championship level over and over again. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I will just add one thing about that is you also have to take in consideration your business model too. And here's what I mean. So sometimes, because of the nature of our work, there may be someone in mind to provide that service. So maybe they have the expertise, degree, or they're retired from the federal government, and it's been known that maybe this person needs to be involved. They may not be a superstar. But again, it goes back to making the client's life easier. So they may just be okay. And I accept that too. So I just want to add that, yeah, the desire is you want everyone to be a superstar, but you also have to think about your business model. Maybe there's a position where you realize the superstars burn out and they really can't handle it, and you just need an okay person. That's okay too. However, when you need a superstar, you have to be honest with yourself and say you need one and have the humility for them to outshine you.
Oh, very true.
That's powerful, because we get so caught up, and every day, despite my initials being involved with the company name, this is not about me. Mm-hmm. I am not the highest paid. I am not the superstar. And I never will be. That's not my desire. I'm here to share how amazing we are. And I know we can do everything that we need to do when it comes to our clients, but not the superstar. And I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay.
Yeah, I think sometimes as leaders, we have to lead from behind a little bit and let our stars shine, let everyone shine. And I think that a lot of times leaders might forget to hire people, as I say, better than me, because I think that's when you're going to have an organization that has the very best. Not be afraid to do that, right?
Yes. Yeah, because it can be scary. I think sometimes there's this mindset of someone's going to take away, like a scarcity kind of mindset, like, oh, they're going to steal my ideas. Like I remember I'm part of this CEO group. We meet monthly. And one of the members talked about a fear of hiring the spouse of one of her employees because she thought they were going to learn so much and start their own business and I guess end up closing her doors. But there was all this fear. I don't really know how much of that was actually true or not. I mean, I know we have NDAs and there are all these things that you can put into place to help ensure that doesn't happen, but it was a real fear for her. And she didn't want to hire the gentleman because he's the spouse of her employee. It was because he really provided some added value that she wouldn't have been able to receive elsewhere. So just some things just to think about.
Yeah, you really do have to think about that. I worked at one time for a corporation that had all these rules about nepotism. And then when the corporation was sold to another one, I tried that where a few people might be family members and discovered that some of the values that the great ones had, some other family members had too. And it turned out okay. So, this is great. Thank you for sharing all this. I think one other thing I'd like to touch on is leadership. If you were to think about yourself and the leaders that you have, and you were to think about some values or characteristics that you think great leaders should have, what kind of words or phrases would cross your mind?
First and foremost, have to be positive. Have to have a positive mindset and belief that, I always say everything is possible. You have to have that belief. A good leader also realizes that you set the tone. And I know we hear that a lot in the sense of there's this thing called contagion when it comes to work. And so if someone is pretty upbeat and positive and happy, chances are it's going to be contagious and others around you are going to that's going to impact them at some level. So the opposite is true. If someone's like doom and gloom, the ceiling, I don't know, I may have to lay people off, and then everybody picks up on it. And then you've now created this environment of fear and anxiety and uncertainty. And so you have to be very careful when it comes to how you project yourself and how your leaders project themselves so that you create the kind of environment that you want. But also keep in mind, it's okay if you are going through things. There have been plenty of times when I was a little concerned, how are we going to make payroll or what's going to happen with this client? But I didn't tell the team because then it would freak them all out. What's the value of telling them that? And the same thing, there may be some really cool, exciting things I can't wait to tell them, but the same works. Also, so the positivity and being very careful of how you put yourself out there as leaders. The other thing is really to listen to people and be mindful of their emotional state. It's easy to get caught up in, you have to delegate and hold them accountable and tell them, explain what you want. I got that. But we're all human beings. You have to have an idea of where they are and check in with them. That's really important with us. Because one thing about us is that we're all about not only helping and making sure everyone's life is easier, but lifting them up. So for instance, a woman wrote that she had been looking for this government job for a really long time, and we kind of inherited her, is what it's called in government contracting. We inherited her, and she just notified us that she's ending her employment with us. And I am so excited for her. I'm so excited for her, and it doesn't surprise me because when she was onboarded, my team learned a lot about her. They were able to learn so much about her where this isn't exactly surprising. And it's because we were checking in. So you have to check in with your team. And if you have thousands of employees or hundreds of employees, you have to make sure you have something in place so that you do that. Because if not, you're going to end up with these horrible reviews online. No one's going to want to work with you. And you're going to think, oh man, I'm the only one that can do everything. Why is nobody here? So you don't want that. It's okay to celebrate them and celebrate their wins. The other thing is reward and recognition is huge as a leader. And not just here's some money or here's a gift card or here's a holiday party or here's some pizza or here have more time, to work from home. You have to really recognize them and have something in place so that they understand why they're being valued. Are you valuing them just because they still work there? Or are you valuing them because perhaps you received some feedback from a client or you received, they had an amazing ratings in some area. So it's very important. Say the other thing is, one of the last items is just to be in communication. What's really scary for followers is the unknown. And so, of course, because of the structure of organizations, not everyone in your organization needs to know everything, right? Or maybe that is your culture. And if that's your culture, awesome. At my company, not everyone knows everything, but we also don't keep them in the dark because what will happen is followers will create their own reality. So followers will create their own reality. So if they think, oh man, I think they're going to downsize me, that's what they're going to think. And you've given them no reason to ever think that, but maybe they think that. I don't know. So you have to be very careful and make sure that you do communicate. For us, outside of the meetings that I have, my team they have daily, some clients require them to check in daily. There are weekly check-ins, there's bi-weekly meetings, there's monthly meetings, there's quality review meetings. They're probably meeting out. But what's great is at least they feel like, okay, I have an understanding of what's going on with KPC opposed to, I don't really know. I'm just going to look for another job mentality.
Right. Solid advice. Boy, you talked about lifting people up. You lifted us up today, Kizzy. This is so valuable. We do show notes, and our show notes editor is going to work overtime to put down some of the things you've said. I just thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure, Dan.
Yeah.
And to your amazing audience, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you talk about you want to help people out, and these are the things that can help so many people out. So I appreciate it. So thank you, Dr. Dominguez, for being here today and sharing with us. We appreciate it. Such a great story for Level Up. As I mentioned, the show notes, now you can take a look at this video or listen to it, and then look at the show notes to see what one thing you would like to do. You see, there'll be many ideas here, and you could try to do them all, but it might be better to just pick one thing and then come back and pick one other thing so that you can level up. That's the name of our podcast. Thank you for being here. And I think, Dustin, now you're probably ready to take us out. Cheers.
If you feel like this information was valuable to you, Dan would love it if you'd click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or thoughts about today's episode, please leave a comment. Also, if you're a first-time subscriber, be sure to ring that bell to be notified about future episodes. To learn more about what Impact's training and development can do for you and your business, visit impactbydan.com, where you can find more information about executive coaching, corporate training, keynote speaking, and much more. Thanks so much for watching.